Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm Nikki Connors, and I'm speaking to you this evening from my Auckland office in Grey Lynn. I thought that this evening that we would take a more gentle approach to discussing property investment and to start back at the beginning, if you like, to go back to basics. A lot has happened over the last couple of months, some bad, but we're seeing it turn, and there's some very good news on the horizon as well. But I thought that it was worthwhile not to talk to you about a particular property, but to talk in generalization about the benefit of property investment and how you can get started. And obviously, one of the things that's incredibly important to me is how you're protected whilst you go on this journey. So first of all, I want to start with why I'm so passionate about property. It's to do with what property can achieve for you. And if you've read my book, you'll know that when I lost everything, it was property that got the things back for me that were very important in my life. And part of that, of course, was to take care of my son, to put a roof over my head, and to be able to contribute both to my family and to the community. And that's why I'm incredibly passionate about property. But for families with children, for instance, the families with mortgages, the benefits of property, if handled in the right way, can be enormous. And obviously, there are risks associated with property. It's an investment, just like any other investment. And that's why it's important to be able to go into this in a way where you're protected by, as much as you can be, by the people around you who have lived through the various cycles. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But let's just talk about the benefits of property. So one of the things that I've found is that I could save and save and save. And I would have, you could have 20, 30,000 in the bank if you're lucky. Most New Zealanders don't have any significant amount in the bank because they're too busy bringing up their children and paying off their mortgages. But the benefit of having just one investment property can be enormous. So with just one investment property, you could pay off your home mortgage, just one property, within 10 years. And if you had two investment properties, that could be well into 5 years. And it's happening every day. So this is not theory, remember. I've been doing this for myself, and I've been doing it for clients for over 14 years. And I've been seeing how clients have been building up something for themselves, some who have started after marriages collapsed and they're having to start again, business collapsing and having to start again. And in fact, last week I got a wonderful testimonial from one of our clients that's on his it's his fifth property, and what we've helped him to achieve. So the benefits are you can pay off your mortgage faster. We've got clients who have used investment property by refinancing or selling in 5 years' time to buy their dream boat, to put their children through private school or for university. Now, that is particularly satisfying. And of course, over the 10 years, we're looking at having a passive income. So if you were to do that by yourself, how would you achieve it? Well, even if you had $1 million in the bank and you were getting 2%, that is such a small amount per annum. And of course, that's taxed. So you're not even getting enough to give you a passive income. But on top of that, it's taxed. And of course, cash is not inflation proof. What you can buy today with $1 million, you're not going to buy the same thing in the next 2, 3, 5, and 10 years. And especially if you're looking at property and how property has grown. I mean, just looking at the stats, we're looking at Auckland, 30% over the last few years. Even in Christchurch, 27% growth. And once again, we'll talk about that in a moment. Now, as prices go up, despite the fact that we say that this is not fair, that this shouldn't be, and who's to blame, the problem is that property does double every 10 years. And yes, it has gone up more in the last few years. And I believe it will continue to go up because we're going to see the borders opening for New Zealanders, also for immigration. And we're also going to be seeing a lot of students coming in, adult students, and looking for places to rent while they're studying. So with the latest government directives towards lending, we're now seeing that developers are not getting the sort of finance that they want. And so we were already in a state where we were desperately in need of property. And now, of course, we're actually losing developers and developments because they can't find funding. On top of that, when we're looking at new builds, the cost of building new build properties, and I've spoken to such a number of developers, the first thing is that you can expect a 12 to 12.5% increase in the cost of building per annum. So if you're looking at a $600,000 investment property, that's over $72,000 per year just on the cost of the build. Now, that doesn't include the cost of people to build the property. And of course, if you can get the materials to build. So we're seeing a lot of the suppliers only being able to supply their bigger clients. So we're not going to see a downturn in the growth and the pricing of investment property. There's always dips. There's always like little curves, if you like. But over 10 years in New Zealand, and I say this, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but property does double every 10 years. And so it doesn't matter what's happening today. Over that 10-year period, you're going to see that $600,000 property become $1.2 million. What is also going to happen, though, that as these prices go up, the mortgages are going to go up. The amount of lending that New Zealanders are going to require is going to go up. And what does that mean? It means that the very significant number today of New Zealanders that are retiring with mortgages we're going to see a sharp increase over the next 10 to 15 years, because we're going to see people that are going to retire with a huge mortgage. And it doesn't matter how much you try and pay off on your principal on that. If you don't want to have a decent life, yes, put everything into it. But at the same time, you deserve to have the holidays. You deserve to spend time with your children. You deserve to live your life. And you can go through the next 10 to 20 years trying to pay the increasing interest rates, but also trying to pay off that the principal and not succeeding. So we've already got a vast number of New Zealanders retiring with a large mortgage, and I just find that totally unacceptable. So the benefits of an investment property, you can pay off your mortgage, you can take care of school fees, you can take care of trips, you can have the lifestyle that you want, but also you can have that passive income in the future. Now, that sounds really rosy, and I honestly believe that it is a positive, but of course, I go back to that investment property, like any investment, holds risks. So what we've got to do is look at how we mitigate those risks. And so what are some of the risks? And of course, at the moment, we've got clients that are coming to us that are feeling very nervous, and it's completely understandable. So two of the things that they're talking about at the moment is, of course, the new lending regulations that came out in February, the CCCFA. Well, What a waste of time that was. Do you know the only people that are going to be suffering the most are first-time buyers? It's actually quite appalling. And what we're seeing now, of course, and I'm sure you've been reading about it, that the government has now intervened and admitted that this has not been managed within the spirit of the whole act. And so they're now looking to reform this. And I think we're going to see a change in about June. It's not going to be a lot better, but we are going to see a change. It means too that for our clients or for anyone that's looking for a mortgage or a loan, I say quite categorically, do not go directly to your bank. Banks have different criteria for lending. You don't know what those are. And you don't know if you're turned down what it's about. It could be that it's the property that is the wrong profile for that particular bank. And that's, some will loan for units and townhouses and apartments, and some won't. You don't know that. It may be that how you've put in your application for your borrowing, you haven't allowed for the income that you may have. You haven't particularly looked at your spending now and what that could be in the future. So we always say, let's look at a mortgage broker because, and I'm sorry if I'm going to repeat myself, but you don't know what you don't know. And that's why now we're seeing so many developers come back to the likes of Propeller because they cannot sell themselves because, of course, their sales team are talking to mum and dad investors, to owner-occupiers, and they have no control over the lending and the applications. And that's one of the things that we look at. And we're starting to get a lot of traction, whether it's with a first-tier lender, which is a bank, or a second-tier lender. And don't be put off by that, by the way. A second-tier lender today may only be a percentage more than a mainstream bank, but they should be used as a tool to help you get on that property ladder now, enjoy the capital growth, and maybe in a year's time, when we're seeing that the criteria changes, that you go back to a mainstream bank. So it's the lending criteria that's an issue. The other issue that we see clients talking to us about is interest rates. What if interest rates continue to go up? Well, that's a very fair question. But remember, it's only been over the last few years that we've seen this sort of interest rates from 2%, 3%. We've never, in my lifetime, and, I've been around a bit, I've never seen such low interest rates. When I started investing, it was 21%. Principal and interest, 21%. So, okay, maybe the properties didn't cost as much, but believe me, the outgoing was a lot more than you would get now at 4% on a higher investment. The point is that whatever the interest rate is, for most people, there are not many options in which to get ahead in life and have their own mortgages paid off. So when I started Propeller over 14 years ago, interest rates were nearly 10%, 9.7%. And yet we had people still at the same numbers investing in property. Why? Because, first of all, most of them didn't have money in the bank. So what were they going to do? They didn't have stocks and shares. And even if they did, they hadn't put enough into those stocks and shares to make a difference to their passive income in the future. They had KiwiSaver, and it's brilliant to have another form of lending. However, how many are going to retire? And KiwiSaver, they may have 100,000 or 200,000. Great for a luxury cruise, but not to supplement the government pension. So it comes down to the fact that we're so busy building up our lives, paying off our mortgages, taking care of our children, because that's what New Zealanders do, that we don't have the backup in the bank to get us to the next stage. So for most of us, the only form of currency that we have is the equity in our home. So it didn't matter that interest rates were 9.7%. It didn't matter whether they were 4%, and it doesn't matter if it goes to 5%. The difference is if you had to top up an investment property today by $100 a week, okay, that's a worst case scenario. Believe me, we've got property, you don't have to worry about that. But that's after all of the outgoings. So $100 a week is $5,200 per year. Okay, so over 10 years, that's $52,000 that you have put into the bank of your property. Now, if you put that into a bank, you would get 1% on that compounded. You'd be paying tax on that, and that 50,000 wouldn't even. I mean, it doesn't buy you a car park in Auckland today. I sold one 4 years ago for 100,000. The average price of a car park is about 90 to 95,000 in Auckland. So what's 50,000 going to buy you? However, if you were topping up a $650,000 property, and you were having to top it up by 5,200 a year, so 52,000 over 10 years. That's over 600,000 in capital gain, potential capital gain. And of course, if it's brand new property that you're purchasing today, in 5 years, if you decided to sell that property, there would be no tax on the profit because it's a brand new property. And of course, brand new property is only 20% deposit. So you don't even need the cash for that because that 20%, so let's just look at a $600,000 property. 20% is $120,000. Now, we don't have that, most of us, in the bank, but what we do have is equity in our home. And so let's talk about equity against leverage. And once again, I apologize if this is quite basic, but I wanted this evening just to go back to basics because there's so much around every year, every single year, whether it's an election year, whether it's interest rates go up or interest rates go down, the government makes a change in tax policy. We see people that go, well, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to hold off and I'm just going to wait. In the meantime, that property, brand new property, is continuing to go up. And so you may say we're going to wait, but we're already seeing it here with our clients. That could be the difference between you paying an extra $100,000. Now, you may think that's crazy, but I'll give you an example. Christchurch, for instance. Now, clients of ours purchased, and oh, boy, was it difficult trying to sell the concept of Christchurch to the rest of the country about the growth, how it's the second wealthiest city in New Zealand. It's the safest city in New Zealand because, of course, after the earthquake, all of the building had to go to a particular code. So it is the safest place in New Zealand. We're seeing so many Aucklanders coming down to Christchurch. So we were recommending house and land 3-4 bedroom properties in Rolleston. Now, Rolleston is the fastest growing area in New Zealand. The high schools, the schools, the wide streets, the shopping, the profile of the people that live there. It's just amazing. And so we had clients that were spending mid 500s to early 600s for a 3 and 4 bedroom or 4 bedroom freestanding house. What happened in the last 9 months, 10 months, of course, the loss of the land, the inability to get the land. And so a 200 square metre lot, which is the average lot size, went from $200,000. Today, you can't get them I mean, that's if you can get them for $500,000, and that's just the lots. And that is continuing to go up. So we're now looking at $950 to $1 million for a 3 or 4 bedroom house in Rolleston. Mind you, if you look at Hamilton, you look at Wellington, you look at Auckland, you're just not going to get a brand new, totally turnkey with landscaping, curtains, blinds, dishwashers, no other costs included for that cost. So we're seeing a lot of people moving down to Christchurch, for instance. So you may say, okay, I'm going to wait. Well, of course, the top of the market 10 years ago, top of the market, okay? And so we're now seeing that, remember, I don't say that it's just an upward trajectory. I'm saying that it's a compounded growth rate. So it could go like this, it could go like that, it could have a little bit of a plateau, but over that 10 years, compounded, it's going to double. So what is the top of the market today is not anywhere near the top of the market in 10 years' time. And of course, we're saying to our clients, you hold that property. You hold that property until you're ready to sell that property. And when you're ready to sell, obviously, it's got to be in an upward market. You only lose with good property if you sell at the wrong time. So let's go back, and I apologize because I go all over the place. I'm just going to have a glass of water. Let's look at that $600,000 property. Okay, so it's going to take $120,000 to guarantee the deposit, because that's what we're talking about. Because in reality, with investment property, if you've got equity in your home, it's just a guarantee. It's 100% borrowing. Now, where else can you do that? Where else can you borrow 100% of $600,000? So 120 from your home. So let's look at, there are two parts of this. There's the equity in your home, and then there's the leverage, which the bank takes to decide whether you've got enough equity to be able to guarantee the deposit of that home, of that investment property. Now, it's quite easy at the moment. You may know what your home is worth or another property is worth, but I recommend that you go onto OneRoof, QV, and look it up. Look up what your property is worth. So let's just say that you have a home that's worth, and I'm only doing this for the sake that it's easy. So you've got a property that is worth in Auckland, which is, an apartment really, $2 million. And you have $1 million mortgage on that. So you've got equity of $1 million. Okay, that's great. But the bank wants to see at least 20% of the value of that home protected by the equity that you've got. So you've got a $2 million home, that's $200,000 that they need. $2 million home, no, sorry, $400,000 that they need to protect themselves. But you've got $1 million worth of equity. So you take the $400,000 away from the million, and you've still got $600,000 worth of equity. Now, we're not saying that you spend all that. All we're saying is that you're going to utilize 20% of the investment property. So that is of the $600,000 property. So that's just $140,000 that you're guaranteeing against your investment property that you're getting 100% mortgage on. So over that time, you've got the $600,000 property. Over 10 years, it doubles. You may have had to have topped it up by $50 per week. Now, with with investment property, it's interest only. So you don't have the same outgoings for your home as you do for your home. And it's amazing how many clients that do have properties come to us and say, oh, I just can't handle it because I'm paying principal and interest on the investment property. And it's like, why? Why are you doing this? Because they've gone directly to a bank, and the bank has said, yes, it's principal and interest. The idea is that if you're building up a portfolio, if you had two properties, let's say you had two properties at $600,000 over 10 years. And they double, so they're 1.2 each. So you pay back the bank, and you're left with a potential capital gain of 1.2 million. So if you've got $1 million home, there's your mortgage gone. However, one of the things that you can do is after 5 years, you can sell one of those properties or even both of those properties, not pay tax on the profit. And that's $600,000 that you can pay off towards your home. Now, your home is the biggest outlay that you have because no one is helping you support the outgoings. It is principal and interest. You've got the rates, you've got insurance, you've got maintenance and repairs. So it is the biggest cost. However, with the investment property, of course, it's interest only, so that takes quite a bit away from what is owed. And you've got the tenant that is going to be taking care of most of the outgoings. So, okay, so we go up to 5% per annum. Okay, so on a $600,000 property, that is 30,000, 30, 5, 10, 15, 25, 30. That's 30,000 a year. Now, on that $600,000 property, your tenant could be paying $600 a week if it's furnished. So $600 a week times 52, or let's say 50. So, sorry, I'm going to just... Well, that takes care of the property. So it's working in unison with you. You might have a few other bits and pieces, but if it's brand new, you don't have maintenance and repair issues. Either you get a better quality of tenant and you get the most rental. So here's a property that you've put nothing into, that it's been most of the outgoings is taken care of by the tenant. You might have to top that up by $20 or $30 a week, but once again, that is $30 a week is what? Just over $1,500 a year. And yet, so it's $15,000 over 10 years, but over 10 years, if that property doubles, that's going to give you a $600,000 potential capital gain. So the key is to think about the future, not about what is happening. I mean, of course, you've got to think about what is happening now, but we're going to see that the borders are going to open, and they're saying that it's sooner than October. Now, before they closed, we know how bad and crucial it was for rental property throughout the country, let alone Auckland, Christchurch, Hamilton, and Wellington, and the bills haven't gone up. A lot of them are stalled. Some are still waiting for funding. And what's going to happen as well is that we're going to see that anything that's started, the developers are going to put their prices up to try and keep up with the cost of the cost of the build. Another fear for investors is, well, what happens if I purchase a property today and the costs go up? Well, one of the things that we do at Propeller, it's about, and I think this is the benefit of what we do as a company, not just about doing the due diligence on the property, finding the right property, looking at the background of the developer. What has he built before? What are his fixtures and fittings like? Where is he getting his finance? So not only do we do that, but won't make a difference. Is this wrong? Okay. So I'll get back to that. I do apologize. I was just looking at one of the questions. So what we're going to, what we're seeing is that, and I've lost my thread, so I do apologize. What I'm going to do is answer the question. So here's the first question that I've got. Tony Alexander said that immigration, once the borders open, won't make a difference to property prices since New Zealanders will leave too. Is he wrong? Well, I love Tony Alexander, and him and I had talked, and it was, it was him and I that were like voices in the desert through the first lockdown. Neither of us believed property prices would go down, and we were proved right. So he's right, but he's also wrong, because he's also looking at built properties. Okay, that's a difference. Existing properties. Now, if you bought an existing property today, here's the trouble as an investment property. Here's the issue. Because it's built, it's a 40% deposit. Because it's built, it's going to, you've got to hold it for 10 years before you can sell it. You can sell it any time, but you've got to hold it for 10 years so that you don't pay tax on the profit. Now, just going back to what I was saying, with brand new property, it is going to make a difference, because not only have we got the shortage of building materials before what is happening with Russia and the war, we had a shortage of, everything. People buying furniture, you can't get it. You've got to wait 6 months, a year at least. But that's the same as building supplies, as steel. So it may not be the same with existing properties, but with brand new properties, which I recommend absolutely wholeheartedly to my clients, because you don't want maintenance and repair issues through the life of your property. The prices cannot stay the same because of the increasing cost of building. And proof of that is the way that developers are now putting clauses into their sale and purchase agreements. So we're now seeing, and by the way, I'm not doing it. I am fighting with developers. I'm like some sort of, some of them are very scared of me. And even on Friday, I had took me a whole day to get the contract for a development that I liked for my clients in a format that was going to protect my clients. So what we're seeing at the moment with brand new property is that developers are putting in clauses to say, first of all, that if the price of that, if the cost of building that investment property goes up by more than 20%, then they're going to come to you and get that difference. Well, excuse me, the reason you buy off the plan is to enjoy some capital growth throughout that build. So when you settle, it's worth more than what you've paid for it. So don't accept that. I don't accept that. And the other thing that they're doing is making the sunset clause, and let me tell you a bit about a sunset clause. That's where the developer says, and the banks need this as well, that this is the date that the property is due to be built. And if that date passes, they have the right to cancel the agreement. Now, that sounds okay, except it's not. Because as far as I'm concerned, you are the only ones that can cancel that contract. Why? Because what we're seeing now is that developers are purposely taking longer so that the sunset date passes, because they're seeing that the properties that they're building have now got, and I see this every day as well, have now gone up by 100, 150,000 from when they first sold them off the plan to investors. And so, hey, let's cancel the contracts. Let's give the investor back their 10% holding deposit, because that's what it is. It's 10%. The mortgage broker gets that on your behalf as an advance from the bank, and it sits in a solicitor's trust account. So you may get that back, but you've lost out on a year or 18 months of capital growth. And so what we're seeing, and once again, this is quite disgusting. what we're seeing is people that are now priced out of the market because they bought a property a year ago, their home, first home buyers, they bought it a year ago for, say, 700,000, and that was the top of what they could borrow for their first home. The contract's been cancelled and it's gone back on the market or offered to them again for mid-eights, and they can't afford it, and they can no longer afford to be on that property ladder. So they've been priced out of the market when they thought that they were protected. So this is one of the things that we look at as well to protect our clients. And so when we get asked, well, what about this? We can say that this is one of the things that we look at to protect our clients. Interest rates going back, to interest rates going up. We also look at potentially borrowing a little bit more that sits there as a buffer to take care of any interest rates going up. So at the moment, we can get the really fantastic rates for new builds. 3 years at 2.54%. That's brilliant. So it means that everything we're recommending to our clients is cash flow positive. So what we say to our clients is, don't use that money. Let it sit there. Let it build up. And that's towards a buffer for any costs in the future. So you can see that there are things about investment properties that you don't particularly know. And I always sort of say you don't know what you don't know. And especially as the prices are going up, interest rates are going up, this is the second most valuable item the most expensive item that you will purchase. So we've got to look at this as not being a do-it-yourself. That's such a New Zealand way. But it's a $600,000, $800,000 purchase. And if you're trying to build up your portfolio, that can go into the millions over the next 3 to 5 years. You've got to be structured in the right way. You've got to have the right property. And of course, you've got to know what the end game is for you. So I've just got a question here. How much does it cost to become a Propeller client? We get paid by, so I do a full due diligence on all the property that we recommend. I don't accept everything. I'm not a real estate agent. None of us are. We're property strategists. So we do a full due diligence and we put together books for our clients with all of that due diligence. And in that, once again, it's who is the developer. However, if we decide that we will take on a development, we will get paid in one flat fee by a developer. So it doesn't matter what the price is, it's a flat fee. So right up whilst you go through the process and get your strategy, and at any time you can walk away, there is no cost to yourselves. I'm very proud of the business model that we have and the due diligence that we have and how we've protected our clients. And that's something I think that we've got to separate. This is not about real estate. It doesn't matter whether you want to live in that property or could, because you're never going to. I'm telling you right now, you never will. And it doesn't matter whether it's close to home, and it doesn't matter if it's north facing, and it doesn't matter if it's on the road, and it doesn't matter if it's down a drive. It comes down to the due diligence. How is it built? Who is the developer? What's he built before? What are the warranties and guarantees? What is going to drive the growth in that area so that you can on-sell it for a profit in the future? What is going to drive the rental so that you're going to get the best rental that you can get from that property? So the materials, the area, the developer, has he got the funding so that you will enjoy that capital growth throughout the build? And that's the sort of thing that whether you come to us or you don't, that you should be looking for. And I come back to, you don't know what you don't know. So I said, we said it was only going to be an hour. I'm up to nearly 45 minutes, but I wanted to have enough time to answer any of your questions, which I will do now. But also, I wanted to give you the contact details of my senior consultants. And that's another really important part of my business. All my consultants are senior. They've come from finance, they've come from banks, they've come from mortgage brokering. It's about building that relationship because we want you to achieve the goals that we've identified together, short, medium, and long term. And to do that, you need people that understand the bigger picture and how we can look at achieving this in a way that, I mean, you don't need $1 million investment property or 1.2. You don't need that. You only need, and if you're looking at $100,000 passive income, that's just 2 medium-priced properties in a growth area that in 10 years' time, if they've got no debt, have got rentals of $40,000 to $50,000. And in my cash flows, I'm very conservative, but we will see that rentals will go up. So, and I'll give you an example. When the borders closed, one of my apartments in central Auckland was I was getting $720 a week, and when it closed, I got something from one of my from my tenant, who said that they had difficulty. So I dropped that to $620 a week. They're no longer there, but I was still cash flow positive. Now, when the borders open again, we're going to see that demand increase again to what it was beforehand, so that we're going to see those rentals starting to increase. So I got another message, and let me just chat. Thank you for your talk today. I would love to book in your earliest available appointment, please. That is absolutely fine. What I'm going to do now is put the information up, as you can see. Oh, sorry. Up, and I'm hoping that you can see this. So please indicate if you can. So those are the contact details of our senior consultants, if you want to write that down, or simply contact us on, there we go. Or simply contact us on info@propellerproperties.co.nz, or our free phone, which is 0800 81 81 91. So here's another one. I'm in the off-plan deal at the moment, but it seems very stuck. So I don't, someone said they can't see it. I do apologize for that. The best thing, I think, is to send your inquiry to info@propellerproperties.co.nz, and please indicate what part of the country you are, or call 0800 81 81 91. So in the chat, so someone is saying, I'm in the off-plan deal at the moment, but it seems very stuck. So I'm not sure what that means. So please give us a call. And remember, if it's been built, because we give our clients updates every month, and it's been stuck for a little bit and it's slowed down. Remember, there is a shortage of materials and people that work. So things have slowed down, and some have had to have stopped. And don't be put off by that, because remember, I always say it's like our cab fare going tick, tick, tick. Hold on to it. You've paid your 10%. And that's just sitting there. If it doesn't go ahead, you'll get it back. But in the meantime, the difference, whilst you're waiting for it to complete, is that it could be quite a significant increase in the value of that property. So someone else has asked me, what do you look for in a growth area? Well, let me give you an example of Hamilton, for instance. Once again, when I started recommending Hamilton, oh my goodness, Aucklanders, I don't want to live in the Tron, I don't want to, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't care where you want to live. Let's look at the facts. We've got the superhighway that's been built. We've got the inland port that's going to be built. So at that time, it was going to be built. It needed 15,000 people to build that. So now it's started, which means that there's almost 15,000 dwellings for those people to live in. And when it's finished, it's going to take 13,000 people to man that port. So they've got to live somewhere with their families. You look at, I also predicted that the commuter train would go back on. And so now we're seeing people that are working in Auckland but are living in Hamilton because of a better lifestyle and what they can get in Hamilton. So we've got the teaching hospital. We've got a lot of head offices that are moving, to Hamilton. Now, let's look at Christchurch. What we saw is that after the quake, when people were moving out to further out of Christchurch, we started to see the cities like Rolleston being built. We started to see like huge growth and families starting to live out there. So one of the things that we look at is the superstores. When they are moving into an area, they've done a lot of research about what it's going to cost them and the sort of profit that they get. So that's always a good indicator as to what sort of growth that you're going to get. But of course, land, to start with, it was great. As I said, my clients were getting properties where the land part of it was 200,000 or 170,000. Well, now, of course, the land is 500,000. But what we've started to see is the amount of people coming along to try and rent these properties. So my property management company in Christchurch can have 20 groups looking at a house in Rolleston, one house in Rolleston, if you can get it. So it's about looking at the indicators. It's looking at what is happening out there in those areas. That's going to drive the property prices up. That's going to drive the demand for rental up as well. And so Hamilton, for instance, clients of mine that bought 7 or 8 years ago in Hamilton houses in the early 60s, including the mortgage broker that we recommend, they're now selling for 1.3, 1.4 million, because we could see what was, having lived overseas in London for many years, you see that the locals can no longer afford. They could no longer afford to live in their cities like London, so they moved further and further out. And so that's what we saw. So Pocono and Pukekohe, and then it continued to go. And of course, we've got such a huge story with Hamilton. And so we're recommending to clients some great properties, but they're in the early 800s, whereas 6 years ago, they were in the 400,000 or 500,000. Great areas, it's just the sort of growth. So I've got someone here that says, hey, I saw that the Reserve Bank saying that the property prices might fall 8%. Should we wait for the fall? Now, the Reserve Bank also saw that property prices were going to drop quite considerably after the first lockdown. Now let's put in, but the other thing is, let's put this in perspective, okay? Over the last 4 years, 3 to 4 years, property prices, as we said, in Auckland's gone up 30%. In Christchurch, 27. I think it's similar in Hamilton. Okay, now in my cash flows for my clients, I'm only showing property prices doubling. This is how conservative I am, every 12 years. Okay, so that's only a 6.5% increase, compounded increase. I'm not quoting 27%. I'm not quoting 30%. So when we're saying about the fall, if they say that there's going to be a fall of 8%, what we're talking about is 8% against 30% or 27%. And that fall may or may not happen. And it certainly may or may not happen with older properties, but not with brand new properties. And I look at what the papers say as well. It just makes me laugh. And I'm sure you're the same. New Zealanders love stories about property. So in the front, you will see big headline, properties will drop by 8%. And then you will turn over the page and you will see something that says in Christchurch or in Rolleston or I'm just trying to think, Rotatuna in Hamilton, property prices have increased in the last year by 18, 20 or whatever it is percent. It's what I was saying right back at the start, that you wait for till after an election, nothing happens, by the way. And we get this every election year. Well, we'll just wait and see. And then nothing happens, except that prices go up because, of inflation. We saw this for a little while. And as you know, it was like a blink of an eye in the lockdown, and then it went crazy. What we've seen as well is that with this CCCFA, it's not stopping investors wanting to invest. What it's done is that investors are now having to look at cheaper properties if they can get them because of the new lending criteria. And if it's Barry, okay, Barry, so let's just assume that you're 60 years old and you say, let's wait. Well, actually, the banks aren't going to loan to you when you're 61. And this is one of the other things that it's become really, really difficult to get people mortgages in the late 50s, early 60s, mid 60s, unless you're very, very lucky. And sometimes we've had to go to second tier lenders because the banks have, with their lending criteria, they're not going to lend to someone that's older. So if we wait with brand new, and as I said, I think there may be drops with older property because, of course, older property is for first home buyers. And under the CCCFA, first home buyers cannot get a mortgage. So secondhand properties are not going to have the same sale because the market for them are different. For investors, it's got to be brand new property because we don't want to eat into your cash flow as far as your equity is concerned. We want to get you the best return. We don't want you to have maintenance and repair issues. And of course, we want you to be able to sell that property in 5 years and not have to pay any tax on the profit. But I know that it sounds trite, but it is a truism. The best time to buy property was yesterday and today. If your mindset is I'll wait and I'll wait and I'll wait, that could potentially cost you a great deal. And I always say, despite what the interest rates were when I started, and I was in my 20s earning a great deal of money, I didn't know about this. It was for wealthy older people, not for people like me. And even through the increases and the dips, what would I be worth today? And you look at your own home. What did you pay for that 8 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? And you bought your home not as an investment, but because you wanted your children to go to a particular school, close to family, and close to a particular lifestyle that you wanted. And look how your property has grown. So just imagine if you had held on to that property for all those years, and what that property is worth, is worth today. The GFC, people sold their properties. I didn't, so there was panics, only for a short time, because the market recovered within 12 to 18 months. I didn't need to sell because I was structured in the right way. So you only lose if you sell at the wrong time. But what happened through the GFC was there's this huge demand for rental property. So my rents went up. And then when I was ready, I sold those properties. So, I could say in hindsight, I should have waited till the GFC and got something cheap. No, because I had purchased that property. I was getting rental. I was getting return from that property, and I was holding it for an amount of time so that I could sell it to get the tax-free benefits from that property. I'm sorry, but I've got to say, if you're going to do it, you've got to do it, and just take that plunge. But do it with your eyes open, and do it with people that have lived through the different cycles. I always make a joke that the people that work alongside me, we've got a combined age of about 400, and that's the reason is that we're all experienced investors, and we know what to do in different parts of that cycle. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much. I don't see that. Hang on. Is there one more question? Let me just see if there's any more questions. Oh, yes. But once I buy new build, it becomes existing. No, not as far as the banks are concerned. For the life of that property, for you, it's brand new all the way through the life of that property. And I'm 32, not 60. I was only just saying as an example, and I do apologize. Yes, it's considered a new build for you throughout the life of the property as you've got it. So I don't see any more. And as I said, thank you so much for your time this evening. I would go to info@propellerproperties.co.nz. The 0800 number, it has an answer phone, and I do apologise for that. But please leave your details, your telephone and your email, and what part of the country that you're with, and one of my wonderful consultants will give you a call. Thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed this evening. Bye now.